Am I the asshole for taking two of my nephews on vacation with me, but not the other? I'm 36M, child-free. I have two sisters, Lisa and Annie. Lisa has two boys, 9M and 7M. Annie has a 8M and 1F. They both struggle financially a little and I have a good job. So this year, I offered to take my nephews to vacation with me this year. My niece is so small that I don't feel comfortable being alone with her at all, and Annie totally get that. I told my sisters to bring the boys to my apartment for a weekend, so that I can see if they'll get along and if I'm up for taking them to the seaside with me for 14 days. The boys came, and at first, we had a great time. I orders us pizza, we watched a movie, played soccer etc. Next morning, I woke them up and gave them cereal. The 8YRO throws the cereal on the floor and says, "I have waffles on the weekend." I told him he can't have waffles for breakfast today, but we can make them for dinner or breakfast next day. He said he doesn't like cereal. I told him he can then just have some toast with peanut butter or some fruit. He yelled at me for not making him waffles. That day he also cut up my shirt because I didn't let him have cookies for lunch, and told me I suck for telling him to eat his veggies before I give them ice cream. He was nightmare. 7YRO and 9YRO behaved great. When my sisters came to pick them up, I told Annie what happened and she said, "Oh, he is just high-spirited." I told her I'm not taking him for vacation. I also told Lisa I'd be glad to take her boys with me, and they were super excited. My parents and some aunts have been biting my head off for treating the kids differently and denying a boy to go to the seaside just because he misbehaved once. AITA? Not the asshole. Your 8-year-old nephew has serious issues which his mother is ignoring. Cutting up a shirt because he couldn't have cookies for lunch? That is very disturbing behavior. Not the asshole. You shouldn't have to deal with a spoiled kid if you don't want to. Especially if he isn't yours. Rewarding the other two nephews for being good and taking them as lovely and super nice of you. Not the asshole. Going with you is a privilege, it's not a right. And if he is behaving this way and your sister thinks it is normal behavior, how are you going to keep up with him while you are far away from his parent? Because you can best believe that the next words out of his mouth would be, "You are not my mom, I don't have to listen to you." It would be a nightmare and he could possibly get hurt, so no, not the asshole. Not the asshole. That's not misbehaving once. That's a warning of a hellish week if you took him. She probably wants the break, but damn, if my kids were like that I'd have sent a warning and how to handle that nonsense instructions. You don't let people find that out once they are stuck. Not the asshole. That isn't misbehaving once your nephew is spoiled and out of control. At his age, that's usually a consequence of poor parenting. If your relatives think your nephew deserves a vacation, they are more than welcome to take him. Not the asshole. I would refuse to watch him for an hour, damn sure would not reward his behavior with a vacation. He is old enough to understand actions have consequences. Am I the asshole for getting back the money my husband took from our IVF treatment and gave to his friend? To start off, I want to say that my husband, 36M, has an old friend, 33M, that he's known since high school. They're inseparable and spend the entire week together. Like they're really close. My husband and I struggled with fertility issues for years. We recently started new method, IVF, in hopes to get at least one child together. Note that I saved for the majority of treatment while my husband only paid 2-3 thousand. We saved up for another round after the huge disappointment and heartbreak from failing the first time. That's just how it goes. This time I'd put all the money, including Dad's inheritance, and my husband didn't pay a cent. Last week I found out that he secretly pulled out $7,000. We had $11,000 in total. I was completely and utterly shocked. I confronted him and he casually reminded me of how many times his best friend complained about his old junk car and he decided to lend him $7,000 to buy a decent car. His argument was that his friend would have done the same for him. I was beyond livid. I asked if he really thought that was okay and he said that I shouldn't worry and guaranteed his friend will pay us back in time. I lost it on him and immediately demanded his friend to send the money back and threatened police involvement in case he refused. His friend immediately returned the money but told my husband about the Pollock thing and my husband came home and yelled at me, calling me unhinged and selfish. I told him I saved up some of this money, used my inheritance for this treatment while he contributed nothing even though we're in this together. He corrected me saying I'm the one with the problem and he thought it's only fair that I make up for it by paying for the IVF myself. This hurt so badly and I couldn't argue anymore. He went to stay with his friend while constantly shaming me for how I treated them both and for the police involvement, like they stole from me or something. Not the asshole. That was money you saved, inherited. That means you are the one paying for it and he did steal from you. He corrected me, saying I'm the one with the problem and he thought it's only fair that I make up for it by paying for the IVF myself. I hate to say it, but unless he apologizes profusely and makes amends, you should run. This man has no respect for you. How could he say something so hurtful to the person he is supposed to love? If this is really what he thinks of you, he doesn't deserve you. Not the asshole. Edit. I striked out a part of my text, because Op stated that it's not the first time he uses this line. Clearly he means it. He is 100% accusing her instead of supporting her. This is not how loving husbands act. Oh hun. You are not in this together, do not have a child with this man. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. He doesn't seem like he actually wants kids. Better idea, divorce him and get a sperm donor, surrogate. Not the asshole. Are you sure your husband and this guy are just really good friends? I can't imagine giving $7,000 to my close friends from high school so they can buy a car. Seems weird to me. Also, not to pull the divorce card, but holy guacamole. If you and your husband have such different views of financial responsibility and money management, I'm not sure how your marriage lasts in the long term. Sorry you're going through this. If you continue with IVF treatments, then I wish you the best of luck. Not the asshole. I don't see how your marriage can come back from this. Am I the asshole for causing my husband to get fired? My husband, 33, has a habit of making up excuses to get out of work. Simply for just not feeling like working on certain days. This has affected us financially because his boss kept lowering his salary as a result. I had to get a second job. He's now bought a PS5 from his 14-year-old cousin and started playing with it day and night. Meanwhile missing work and lying to his boss about why he does it. This time it's because of bad diarrhea and he couldn't get off the toilet, that time is because of fever, etc. etc. Honestly, I got fed up with him ruining his job and causing us money. I told him he needed to knock this off, but he told me to stay out of it and focus on my jobs. Days ago. He was eep after staying up all night playing video games. He's decided to skip work even though his boss gave him a last warning. His boss called at 8 a.m. and I picked up the phone. He asked where my husband was and whether he was coming to work. I straight up said no, because he was up all night playing video games and decided he wasn't going next day. His boss ended the call with me, then I went to work. 2 hours later, I got a call from my husband panicking saying he found a text from his boss saying he was fired and asked what I told him to get him to do that. I said I told him the truth, but he blew up at me saying he was cooking up an excuses to get his, now former, boss off his back and give him the day off, but I fucked I all up. I told him he can't blame me after the pattern he's set and the lack of commitment he's shown to his former boss. He yelled saying I did this to get back at him and to mess with his livelihood. He hung up but the nasty texts kept coming. I went home and he's gone completely silent while occasionally venting about how I ruined his job for him when I could have lied and told his former boss whatever excuses instead. Not the asshole. You didn't cause him to get fired, his lack of commitment and responsibility did. He has no accountability by blaming you for this inevitable outcome. Honestly, I think you need to divorce him pronto. Not the asshole. Why are you still in a relationship with him if he doesn't see this as a partnership and turns nasty when his behavior has consequences? He doesn't sound mature enough to be in any relationship, let alone 33 and married with all the financial and emotional responsibilities that comes along with that. Stop supporting him and I'd be carefully thinking if this is what you want your life to be like for the next 40, 50, 60 years. Not the asshole. He was gonna be fired whether or not you interfered. Also, don't have kids with this man. If you do have children, you'll end up doing if not all then most of the caretaking. Get out while you still can. I told him he needed to knock this off, but he told me to stay out of it and focus on my jobs. Excuse me? Number 1. He's decided to skip work even though his boss gave him a last warning. Excuse me? Number 2. He's gone completely silent while occasionally venting about how I ruined his job for him. Excuse me, WTF? Number 3. He told me to stay out of it and focus on my jobs. He told me to stay out of it and focus on my jobs. He told me to stay out of it and focus on my jobs. Not the asshole. You are underreacting the situation. NTA. Get out of this relationship. He's a child. Do not have children with him. Not the asshole. He has put your entire family in a difficult financial decision and won't alter his behavior. To blame you for the consequences of his actions when he'd already received a last warning is a way to avoid owning his own choices and the impacts of those choices. Just leave, it's not going to get better. AITA. This sounds like financial abuse. Are you and he of similar ages? Am I the asshole for getting mad at my grandma for telling my dad that I'm getting married? So when I, 24 female, was like 8, I broke a vase that was precious to my stepmom. I don't think she ever liked me, but she was like to my dad, it's me or it's her. I thought for sure my dad would choose me cause I was so close to him, but that night he told me I was going to grandma's. I honestly didn't believe it till I got there and he left, and I guess that just changed something in me. He phoned every day and tried to see me every day too, and at first I pretended to be happy, but I wasn't cause I wasn't home. I know that I stopped pretending pretty fast, and looking back I acted apathetic to him. Like not angry or sad but just emotionless. I know sometimes I heard him complain to grandma about me acting so differently than before. When I was 9, I told my mom I wanted to move in with her full time cause I just started hating phone calls and visits from my dad. Even though she had a tiny apartment, she said yes. Honestly, I slept in the same bed as her till I moved in with my fiancé. Don't care though cause she's my mama. And it was better than having my own room and having to deal with him every day. My mom and I have become super close, and she enrolled me in after school stuff so I could avoid my dad. And contact just ended, and I'm thankful for it cause I didn't have to be there for him. Like, a few years ago, stepmom gave birth and there was a big celebration, and I'm so happy I'm nowhere in sight and that I haven't even seen the kid yet. I'd really only see him on birthdays or when he came to grandma's home when I was there. My fiancé had a low-key proposal a week ago and I told my mom, my uncle, mom's cousin, and my grandma. Now my grandma knows how little I talk to my dad and how out of the loop I keep him. So it was a surprise when I got a phone call from my dad inviting me to a family dinner so I could introduce my fiancé and meet my baby brother. I made up an excuse cause screw that. It was obviously grandma who told him, and I got mad at her and ended up yelling at her. I got a text from my dad like an hour ago which chastised me for taking out my issues with him on grandma. As much as I hate to say it, he may be right about that. Not the asshole. But please text your dad back. You chose your wife over an 8-year-old child. That was the day I stopped being your daughter. Please don't contact me again because I have no desire to have a relationship with you in any way. Then, call or text your grandma and tell her you do not want her to tell your father anything, or you'll have to put her on an info diet. Can't you send a vase to your dad and stepmom to congratulate them with the baby, with a card that will let him know to never contact you again? All you need to say is that you and your fiancé, congrats by the way, have no interest in having dinner with the man who chose his wife over his child because of a broken vase, and we're not even going to go into the fact that stepmother got away with such an ultimatum in the first place. He made his bed, and now he can lie in it. Not the asshole. Your grandma knows the deal, he chose a woman over his child. I would be sure to keep grandma on a low info diet. Don't tell her too much about the wedding, and I would hold her invite as long as possible because you know she's going to tell him. He would probably show up, uninvited, to walk you down the aisle and introduce your step-sibling. Probably best to just tell him he's not invited and he's not wanted at the wedding. Not the asshole. If my son abandoned his kid for a woman, I would go and see with him. She is low-key encouraging his behavior and hurting his granddaughter in the process. Info. Is your grandmother your dad's mom or your mother's mom? Otherwise, not the asshole. Your dad chose your stepmother over you over a broken vase, and those decisions have consequences. He made it clear that you were less important to him than her. Now he wants to try and loop you back into his life. If you don't want that, then you don't have to let him in.